Imagine being born into a family where your dad's idea of a bedtime story was reading you the fine print on a real estate contract. That's where our story begins with little Donald Trump, a boy whose first words were probably, "You're fired," before he even knew what firing someone meant. From the very start, Donald was groomed to be a winner. His father, Fred Trump, was a ruthless real estate mogul who believed in two things: money and more money. Little Donnie didn't get hugs. He got quarterly performance reviews. And let's be honest, if your childhood nickname was Donnie, you were either destined to be a mobster or a reality TV star. Spoiler, he became both. Fast forward to the 1980s, and Donald Trump was the living embodiment of excess. Gold-plated everything, a hairstyle that defied both gravity and logic, and an ego so big it had its own zip code. He was the king of New York, or at least he played one on TV. But here's the thing about being Donald Trump. No matter how high you climb, there's always someone laughing behind your back. Take his business career, for example. Sure, he built skyscrapers with his name on them, but half of them were practically held together by duct tape and lawsuits. He declared bankruptcy more times than most people changed their passwords. And yet, somehow, he spun it like it was all part of some grand master plan. I love debt. It's like smart debt. Meanwhile, the banks were crying into their spreadsheets. Then there's the love life. Oh boy. Marrying a supermodel sounds like a flex, until you realize she probably married you for the free publicity. Ivana, Marla, Melania, each marriage was like a season of a soap opera, but with worse acting and more prenups. And let's not forget the time he openly checked out his own daughter on national television. If awkwardness were an Olympic sport, Trump would have more gold medals than Michael Phelps. But the real tragedy? The man just wanted to be loved. Not by his wives, not by his kids, no. He craved the adoration of the masses. He hosted The Apprentice, firing people with the enthusiasm of a kid popping bubble wrap. He became a meme before memes were even a thing. And for a brief, glorious moment, America treated him like what he truly was. A clown with $1 billion budget. Then 2016 happened. Picture this. You're a 70-year-old man who's spent his entire life being a caricature of wealth and ego. You've been roasted by comedians, mocked by the media, and yet somehow you're now the most powerful man in the world. This is where the real suffering begins. Being president was supposed to be his crowning achievement. Instead, it was like handing a toddler a flamethrower. Every day was a new disaster. He'd wake up, tweet something unhinged, and spend the rest of the day arguing with journalists about crowd sizes. His staffers looked like they were running a daycare for a particularly unruly senior citizen. And the enemies. Oh, the enemies. The media, fake news. The intelligence agencies, deep state. His own party, occasionally remembered he existed. Even his handshakes were a battleground. World leaders would yank him around like a rag doll, and he'd just grin like a confused golden retriever. Then came the lawsuits. Oh, the lawsuits. If lawsuits were a currency, Trump would be the richest man alive. Sexual misconduct allegations, fraud investigations, impeachments twice. Most people go their whole lives without getting impeached once. This guy did it back to back, like it was a buy one, get one free deal at Walmart. And let's talk about the cult following. Sure, he had fans, but have you ever seen a Trump rally? It's like a WWE event, but with more conspiracy theories. These people loved him so much they'd storm the Capitol for him. Meanwhile, Trump was probably backstage eating a Big Mac and wondering why no one respected him. The final humiliation? Losing to Joe Biden, a man who occasionally forgets what century it is. Trump spent 4 years screaming about rigged elections, only to lose fair and square to a guy who communicates mostly through folksy anecdotes. The ultimate insult. So why does it suck to be Donald Trump? Because no matter how rich, how famous, or how powerful he gets, he'll always be the same insecure kid from Queens, desperate for approval but too stubborn to admit it. He's a man who won the presidency but lost the respect of half the country. A billionaire who's constantly one bad deal away from ruin. A legend in his own mind, but a joke to everyone else. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the tragicomedy of Donald J. Trump. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of ego and failure, smash that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what's the most Trump thing Trump has ever done? And remember, no matter how bad your day is, at least you're not checking Twitter at 3 a.m. to argue with a teenager about your IQ. After leaving the White House, Trump's life became a bizarre mix of legal drama, golf courses, and increasingly unhinged rally speeches. The man who once commanded nuclear codes was now reduced to hawking 99 digital trading cards of himself as a superhero. Let that sink in. A former US president was selling NFTs like a washed-up YouTuber trying to pay rent. His social media empire, Truth Social, was supposed to be his triumphant return to the internet. Instead, it became a ghost town where his most loyal followers screamed into the void while the stock price did a swan dive. Even his own investors seemed to realize too late that they'd bet on a man whose business strategy was basically yell loudly and hope for the best. And the legal troubles? Oh, they kept piling up like overdue bills in a Trump Organization filing cabinet. Indictments for fraud, election interference, classified documents stuffed in a bathroom next to gold-plated toilet every week brought a new courtroom spectacle. His lawyers probably had objection, Your Honor, said as a keyboard shortcut. But here's the real kicker. Trump spent his whole life trying to be the ultimate winner, only to become the ultimate loser in the most public way possible. He wanted to be remembered like Rockefeller or Carnegie, but instead, his legacy is memes of him looking confused in the rain, awkwardly drinking water with two hands, and getting roasted by a teenager named Greta. Just when you think it can't get worse, it does. Trump's 2024 campaign felt less like a political movement and more like a desperate attempt to stay out of prison. His rallies became sadder, his rants more incoherent, and his insults somehow even lamer. Ron DeSanctimonious? Really? Meanwhile, the Republican Party was slowly realizing that tying themselves to a man with the self-control of a Twitter troll might not be the best long-term strategy. And then came 2024, the ultimate comeback story. Against all odds, after years of being counted out by the media and political establishment, Trump pulled off what even his most loyal supporters doubted was possible. He won, again. The man who had been impeached twice, indicted 4 times, and written off as politically dead was now preparing to return to the Oval Office. But here's the irony. This victory may have been his ultimate trap, because now he'd have to actually govern, with all his legal troubles still hanging over him like a golden sword of Damocles. The same ego and bravado that got him elected would now be tested against the realities of leading a divided nation while simultaneously fighting courtroom battles. He had won the election, but at what cost? So why does it truly suck to be Donald Trump? Because he's a living cautionary tale, a man who had wealth, fame, and power but still ended up as a punchline. A guy who could have retired as a beloved tycoon but instead became the most divisive figure in modern history. A winner who, deep down, knows he'll never be respected, only feared, mocked, or pitied. And that's the real tragedy. Not the indictments, not the failed businesses, not even the humiliating memification of his existence. It's that after all the money, the scandals, and the screaming, Donald Trump is just a lonely old man in a too long tie, wondering why nobody takes him seriously. If you made it this far, congratulations, you now understand the absurd tragedy of Donald Trump better than most political analysts. Drop a comment below. What's the most embarrassing moment of his career? The Kavfefe tweet? The time he got owned by a Danish PM over Greenland? Or just the entire 2020 election aftermath? And hey, if you enjoyed this journey through the life of a man who somehow failed upward for 70 years, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Because let's be real, no matter how bad your life gets, at least you're not Donald Trump. And if you are Donald Trump watching this, sir, please log off.